The history of Scotland has proven to be a rich and romantic inspiration for novelists, movie makers, and other creators of popular entertainment. Aside from the craggy heights, glassy lochs, and vivid greens of the landscape, the Scottish reputation for national pride and the distinctive Scots accent have led to the creation of scores of stories and myths about the people of this Celtic homeland. Integral to many observers, as well as to many Scots themselves, is the connection between the language of the land and the national identity. Generally, three languages are recognized in Scotland: Scottish English, Scots, and Gaelic. Historically, there have been countless debates over whether Scots is a separate language or merely a dialect of English. In the Edinburgh Companion to Scots, authors Corbett, McClure, and Stuart Smith see Scots and Scottish English as part of a language continuum from Broad Scots to Scottish Standard English. Though Scottish Standard English is closely associated with Standard British English, it still maintains pronunciations, vocabulary, and constructions from the Scots end of the spectrum. Historically, Scots, Scottish English, and British English all descended from Anglo-Saxon and began drifting apart in the Middle Ages. Gaelic, with its Celtic influences, became dominant in the Highlands, while the Germanic Scots became dominant in the lowlands and some of the outlying islands. Its sister language, English, gained primacy in England. Scots and English share many commonalities, though Scots has its characteristic differences in pronunciations, word usage, and loanwords from other languages, including languages like Scandinavian languages, Gaelic, French, Latin, Dutch, and Flemish. In 1603, James VI of Scotland became James I of England, unifying the Scottish and English kingdoms and moving the royal court to London. This led to a period of cultural and linguistic convergence, and when the King James Bible was published in 1611 in English, English became the prestige version of the dialect in the northern part of the kingdom, though the Scots maintained its place as the language of the people. In the interest of promoting English and Scots English as the languages of the land, and of asserting England's dominance, Gaelic was banned in 1616. In 1707, the Act of Union dissolved the Scottish Parliament, beginning a sometimes violent, sometimes merely uneasy relationship between Scotland and England. The Jacobite rebellions of 1715 and 1745 led to a further suppression of Gaelic and a diminishment of Scots English. Through the next several centuries, English and Scots both remained relevant in Scotland, though the Scots language, especially in the more rural areas, lacked the respect of standard Scottish or British English in everyday speech, even as it was often celebrated in literary culture. Poets James Macpherson and Robert Burns wrote in Scots English in the 18th century, and they were followed by Sir Walter Scott, author of the Romantic Highland Tales, late in the 18th and early 19th century. Their writings brought attention to the Scots language, though only as a dialect suitable for fiction or poetry. The language was not one used by the upper classes in Scotland, or by anyone wanting to move into the upper classes. This situation continued well into the 20th century. In emphasizing its disdain for Scots in 1946, the Scottish Department of Education declared that on their report on primary education that Scots, quote, is not the language of educated people anywhere, and could not be described as a suitable medium of education and culture. The disrespect for the variation continued through much of the 20th century, especially in academic and political settings. The situation only began to evolve with the reopening of the Scottish Parliament in 1998 and the push for Scottish independence from the United Kingdom in 2014. This led to a new appreciation for the Scots language, especially for those favoring Scottish nationalism. Even though the referendum for independence failed, the national pride in the more Scottish variations of the Scottish English continuum continues, with new interest in its history and a connection between it and national identity for many Scots citizens. As for differences between Scottish English and British English, the pronunciation of Scots and Scottish English can vary considerably from region to region, but there are some common characteristics. Phonologically, Scots is mostly rhotic in nature, though there are pockets of non-rhotic varieties of the dialect, often in urban areas like Edinburgh or Glasgow. In addition, the R is often given special attention, with an alveolar tap or trill, depending on the speaker. In consonant production, Scots recognizes 25 phonemes rather than the 24 of standard British English, adding the X phoneme to represent the ch sound in words like loch and other commonplace names. Scots also utilizes the velarized L or the dark L, pronounced at the back of the throat in most cases. Ending of words with ed may be pronounced as a T, and ing endings are often pronounced with a dropped G, especially in more casual settings. As for vowel sounds, many words confirmed the Scottish vowel length rule, which was stipulated by Scottish linguist A.J. Aitken. It suggests that vowels are lengthened in the following conditions: 1 before R, 2 before a voiced fricative, 3 before a morpheme boundary, and 4 in a word final open syllable, except for the happy I vowel. Additionally, Scottish English has no sound, instead using the oo sound, making pull and pool homophones. Grammatically, Scots follows the subject-verb-object order, just as standard British English. However, speakers tend to use the progressive verb forms more frequently than in other standard Englishes, such as, I'm wanting a drink. Are you coming from Glasgow? In addition, speakers often add the definite article, as in, I'm away to the school, to spoken language. To negate words, Scots uses the negative particle na or nay, as in didna or canna, for didn't or can't. In addition to the spelling and pronunciation variation from standard British English, there are quite a few words and phrases that are particular to the Scots language. Here are some of the common ones. For many generations, the broader Scots accent and language constrictions were seen as inferior to the standard Scottish, standard British English. These ideas were reinforced by societal pressures and educational institutions. Broad Scots was seen as the language of the uneducated lower class, and often middle and upper class residents of Scotland varied linguistic structure and pronunciation in a version of code switching to move along the continuum depending on the situation. More formal situations required drifting to the standard Scots English end of the spectrum, while more casual settings tended to lean to the Scots end. However, the 1990s brought about new attitudes to the language, and researchers began to notice a change in how Scots was perceived both inside and outside the region. As mentioned above, the re-establishment of Scottish Parliament indicated an increased national pride in the country, and with it came a renewed interest in the more traditional forms of the Scottish language. In 2009, the Scottish government commissioned a study of citizen attitudes towards the Scot language, carried out approximately by surveying 1,000 Scottish adults. The results indicated that though a majority of the survey respondents, 64%, did not see Scots as a separate language from English, 85% spoke or were able to speak using the pronunciations and conventions of the language. In addition, 67% felt that it was important that the Scots variant of the language be spoken in Scotland, and 88% and 86% respectively felt that Scots was an important part of A, the history, and B, the culture of Scotland. It is quite clear that attitudes towards the Scots language have changed in recent decades. With the designation of Scots as a language by the European Charter for Regional or Minority Languages in 1992, as well as recognition by both the British and Scottish parliaments soon after, there came a respectability and an acknowledgement of the language's importance in both historical and contemporary Scotland. In addition, the new feelings of national and linguistic pride pushed a renewed interest in the study and usage of the language that spread beyond social circles into academic and political spheres and far beyond Scotland's border. Scots is enjoying a newfound prestige and has the support to continue to see it flourish in the years to come.